American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump says social distancing efforts to help cut the spread of coronavirus have been extended another 30 days. Kevin Cork reports.
The president says our mitigation efforts are actually making a difference. Unfortunately, things will likely get worse before they get better.
We face a difficult few weeks as we approach that really important day when we're going to see things get better all of a sudden. And it's going to be like a burst of light, I really think and I hope.
Meanwhile, the White House, along with congressional leaders, are looking ahead to the post-pandemic era and the need to ramp up jobs opportunities for Americans who've been impacted by the pandemic. A favorite, obviously, being infrastructure, the pillar of a multi-trillion-dollar Phase 4 package now said to be under consideration.
President Trump is urging Florida to let 2 cruise ships dock. Eben Brown reports the ships have coronavirus patients on board.
Both the Zaandam and Rotterdam from Holland America are hoping to dock in Fort Lauderdale despite carrying confirmed cases of COVID-19 and others exposed.
We have, I believe, 311 fellow Americans on this ship.
But Broward County Mayor Dale Holness and others aren't sure they want thousands of people coming off those ships and either into the community or into local hospitals. Holland America says they want to get passengers onto airplanes and back to their homes. A plan could be devised later today. In Broward County, Florida, Eben Brown, Fox News.
The Trump administration is using $200 million in stimulus money to set up a telehealth program to help battle the virus. Rachel Sutherland reports.
Calling it a game changer, Federal Communications Commission Chairman Ajit Pai announced the creation of the COVID-19 telehealth program.
A bold new initiative that enables eligible healthcare providers to buy telecommunications, broadband connectivity, and devices that will help patients get the care they need remotely.
Pai says remote health treatment is vital during the coronavirus crisis to protect both patients and doctors. He also says hundreds of internet providers have pledged to keep Americans connected regardless of their ability to pay during the pandemic. Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
CBS News was caught over the weekend using video footage from an overrun Italian hospital and claiming it was from New York City. Steve Jordahl has the story.
The British news outlet Sky News originally shot the footage in mid-March in a story about the coronavirus ravaging northern Italy. CBS ran the video over a graphic saying New York now accounts for more than half of new U.S. cases. In a statement, the network called using the footage a mistake. Talk host Jeff Crank says that's not a good enough excuse.
They'll argue that it's just an editing error and they were just using stock footage or whatever. But at a time like this, it's important to be accurate. At a time when America's kind of on the verge of panicking about the situation it finds itself in, you got to be really careful.
He says the strange thing is CBS didn't have to go to Italy to find a video of overcrowded hospitals. New York has its own share.
When they are irresponsible like this, you know, it really shows that this is political to them. They're desperately trying to find a way to make the president look bad. And I think people are sick and tired of that politics. That's why you see a poll that came out last week that showed the media is the one group of people who the American people do not think are handling this crisis very well.
A recent Gallup poll found 55% of Americans disapprove of the way the news media was handling the crisis. That was the only institution or individual underwater in the poll. Not even President Trump or Congress slipped above 50%. I'm Steve Jordahl.
Manufacturing contracted in the United States and around the world last month, dragged down by economic fallout from the coronavirus outbreak. The Institute for Supply Management and Association of Purchasing Managers reported today that its U.S. manufacturing index fell to 49.1 in March after a 50.1 reading in February. Any reading below 50 signals a contraction. The index has signaled growth in January and February. American Family News is online at onenewsnow.com and on the One News Now mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hello, everyone. This is Claudio Relsano. Tune into my show, The Claudio Relsano Show, where I will be interviewing sports legends of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, as well as talking sports with some old friends. You can hear us on ClaudioRelsano.com. That's ClaudioReilsono.com. And now at 4 p.m. on Fridays and 9 a.m. on Mondays at the George Espenlaub Show on Facebook.
The following is an encore presentation of MoneyWise.
Once upon a time, it was difficult to get your credit score. You had to shell out some cash to do it. These days, you can get it for free and do it with the push of a button. But do you really know what you're getting? Some fun facts today about credit scores. Fun may be a bit of an exaggeration, but let's go with interesting or certainly useful. Financial planner and teacher Rob West tells you what you don't know about your credit score. Then he takes your calls at 800-525-7000. 800-525-7000. I'm Steve Moore. Good to have you along for MoneyWise. Okay, Rob, it's a number between 300 and 850. It reflects how well we manage our credit, paying our bills on time, that sort of thing. What more could there possibly be to know about your credit score?
Oh, Steve, a lot more, but we'll look at just 4 things today, and I think they're kind of fun as well as useful and interesting.
All right, careful. Your financial nerd side is showing there. Fun as well as useful and interesting. That's Where do we start?
Well, the first thing is that you actually have many credit scores. When you request one from a lender, a website, or maybe a smartphone app, what you get depends on the scoring model that was used. Most everyone's heard of the FICO score, which is an acronym for the Fair Isaac Corporation, and it's the one used by most lenders. But FICO doesn't have a monopoly. Competitors like Vantage Score are coming on the scene now. Then, too, each model has different versions. These versions cater to different types of accounts, like credit cards or auto loans, and your score can vary some depending upon which is used. Also, your score could vary depending upon which credit report or reports were used to determine it. So the 3 credit reporting bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, each keep a separate record of your credit transactions. Your creditors may report to just 1 or 2 or all 3. So that's another variable. And all of this means that when you request your credit score, Steve, the number you get may not be the number the lenders and others see when they pull your credit report as you're requesting credit.
Well, I'll tell you, now you've got people panicking here. They thought they had a great score. Now they're not sure because there are 3 and you don't know which one you're looking at, which one your creditors are looking at. What do we do?
That's a perfect segue to our second fun fact, and that is that you really shouldn't panic about your score or that the one you see isn't the precise number the others are seeing. You can't control that. But you do control your use of credit, and that affects your score, whichever model or version is used. You control whether you pay your bills on time, the amount you owe, which accounts you open or close. Those and a few other factors determine your credit score. So you're still very much in control. If you need to accurately and precisely track how your credit is doing, just make sure to use the same score generated from the same credit report. The score sheet should indicate which reporting bureau was used.
Okay, well, that's good to know. But isn't all that checking going to actually lower your credit score? That's what I hear from friends anyway.
Well, your friends are just flat wrong. And that's actually our next fun fact. Checking your credit score in no way affects the number. It's called a soft pull on your credit, and it changes nothing. It's only when a potential lender checks your credit, that's a hard pull, where that's initiated, and that will lower your score a bit temporarily. A landlord checking your credit could have the same result. All of these where you grant permission to a creditor to actually pull the report.
Okay, that's good to know. So what's our final credit score fun fact today?
See, you're having fun, aren't you?
Well, what's my job?
All right. Last but not least, it's not a good idea to get more credit to improve your score. Yes, more credit can positively affect your score by boosting your credit mix and credit utilization, 2 components of the score, but it's dangerous. You could be tempted to use that credit. You could have your identity stolen and someone else could use it. Also, having a good payment history is far more powerful as a factor for determining your score. So concentrate on that. that, and your score will go up without having to open a new charge account. I certainly wouldn't do that just to get better credit.
All right, and finally, what's a good credit score these days, Rob?
Well, most models use a range between 300 and 850, like you mentioned earlier. Using that range, a score of 700 and above is good. 800 and above is excellent. Most will fall in a range between 6 and 750. By the way, if you want to get your credit score, there's some great resources out there. I'll mention 3: Credit Karma with a K, Nerd Wallet, and Wallet Hub.
I knew we'd come back to Nerd somehow, somewhere, someplace. Here's Rob West taking your calls at 800-525-7000.
Money and life run on the same track, but unfortunately, sometimes it seems like your money is heading in a different direction from your goals. In Never Enough, 3 Keys to Financial Contentment, author Ron Blue helps you to break down all your financial options to a basic 4, and then shows you how to keep it all chugging along in the right direction on the same track. Never Enough, 3 Keys to Financial Contentment. Available when you click the store button at moneywise.org.
Christian Healthcare Ministries enables believers to meet their healthcare costs affordably, biblically, and compassionately. It's not insurance, but a voluntary cost-sharing ministry based on the biblical example of Christians sharing each other's needs. And members aren't fined under the law for not having health insurance. Christian Healthcare Ministries might be your health cost solution. Call 800-791-6225 or visit chministries.org. Nice to have you listening today. This is MoneyWise with Rob West. I'm Steve Moore. Here's our number, 1-800-525-7000. Middletown, Maryland. Amy, thanks so much for your patience. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you for taking my call. I enjoy listening to your program.
Thanks.
My husband and I are thinking we should probably get some life insurance. We're in our mid-20s. We have 2 little girls. We recently bought a home, and so we think it would probably be a good idea to get some at least on him. And we were wondering if you had any suggestions as to who a reputable company would be to look into.
Yeah. Well, I love the way you're thinking, Amy. Congrats on your new home, your little ones. It sounds like you all have an exciting life, and I love that you're thinking about your role as provider, and I think insurance is part of the way we do that to make sure we are providing for our families, because if your husband is the one who's out working and you're at home, then we want to be sure we can replace his income if something were to happen to him, and as a starting point, 10 to 12 times his income would be a good rule of thumb. If you're working, we certainly want the same on you. If you're not and you're home with your little ones, we want to think about perhaps a policy on you as well. And here's why. If something were to happen to you and he's continuing to work to pay the bills and provide for your children, then he's going to have to put them in daycare full time, and that can be expensive. And so that would provide, when we invest the proceeds of that life insurance, that would provide some income to supplement those additional costs, so that wouldn't be a burden. The good news is, Amy, as a young family, you all can get term life insurance very inexpensively. You can get a 20 or a 30-year policy, and you really won't add a whole lot to your spending plan. Where to go to get it? Well, I would encourage you not to buy from someone who's a direct insurance company. It's just not my preferred approach. I'd rather you use either a local independent insurance agent who represents a number of insurance companies and can find the company that's the best fit for you, the high-rated company with the proper amount of insurance that fits your budget. And the other option would be to look at an independent online broker. I think you could go either way. Now, my preference is to work with somebody face-to-face so they can actually walk you through the process of doing a little bit of planning, making sure you understand exactly what you're getting and what the right amount is for you all, given your situation and perhaps any unusual situations you might have that need to be explored as a part of the planning process. And then that person can go out and find the very best policy for you. You could begin the search online just to have a number of options to compare it to. And then if you don't have an insurance agent, you could go to 2 places. One is you could go to our website, moneywiselive.org, and click Find a Professional and look for a certified Kingdom advisor in the insurance area. If you have one in your area, great. If not, you could check at your local church and just ask for a referral to somebody from the church who specializes in this area and is an independent insurance agent, and they would be able to assist you with some life insurance. But you're asking the right questions, and hopefully what I shared with you is helpful to you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And Amy, we're not against any specific insurance companies, but we are suggesting that when you deal with an agent who only represents one company, you don't always get the best price. If you're dealing with someone who represents multiple companies, there are lots more opportunities and, quite frankly, some competition going on that may ultimately help you get a better price. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Bye-bye. And Rob, one thing we didn't mention, for younger couples, most often, 9 times out of 10, term insurance, typically the better option, right?
It is, because that way, Steve, you can make sure that you get the proper amount of coverage with the lowest impact financially on the family budget, and then be sure you're saving separately by putting money away, not only in your emergency fund, but in a matched company-sponsored retirement plan or a Roth IRA or both. Remember, the goal there is 10 to 15%. If you do that throughout your working years, you'll get to a place when you're ready to retire and ask God for your next assignment, you'll be at a place where you don't need insurance because you are self-insured. You have everything saved up that's going to be able to fund your lifestyle.
I like it. Let's continue. Dexter, Missouri. Susie, what's your question today?
Well, I don't have a whole lot of financial sense at all. Right now, I'm sitting on a pretty good amount of student loan debt. I'm still going to college. I have a little bit in a 401k that I just opened up recently. So I'm starting to learn to save, but my credit is awful. I'm wanting to try to get my debt and my credit straightened out, and I just don't know where to start.
Okay. Well, Susie, you've come to the right place. First of all, let me just encourage you. I sense in your voice that you're frustrated. You don't quite know where to turn. I realize the pressure that debt can bring as that mounts up. And I think the starting place is just to give that over to the Lord. Let's start by talking about a few of the things you mentioned. Number one is you mentioned you have some student loans. How much do you have in the way of student loans?
Well, right now I have $23,000 in student loans.
And what about any savings? Do you have some savings of any kind?
Right now I do not have anything other than my 401k.
Okay. All right. Are you actively contributing to that 401k?
Yes. I put my company matches up to 5%, so I put what my company matches in there.
All right. I'm going to encourage you, as much as I like you funding retirement and as much as I don't want to give up the match, that's not the priority place for that money, in my opinion. You're young. You'll have plenty of time to save. We want to establish that discipline at some point, but now is not the time. I think we need to get to the place where you have a balanced budget and where you're making some progress toward, at the very least, building up some emergency savings, because that's long-term money and we need money in the short term. So I would suspend that 401k contribution right now if it were me. The next thing I would do is take that money and automatically start applying that to savings. We want to continue to pay the minimums on the credit cards and the loan that you have, anything that is active and not deferred, but we want to put the rest into your emergency savings. So open a savings account at, you could do that at Marcus, or you could do that at Capital One 360 or Ally Bank. Attach it to your checking account and get an automatic debit of $150 a month going in there. Once you get to $1,500, let's cut that off. That's going to give you a cushion so that if something else comes up, well, let me change that. When something else comes up unexpectedly, you've got that money to fall back on. Then we're going to look at the credit cards. Now, let's take an aside here. If you don't have a spending plan, we've got to do that before any of this. And that's going to involve you really tracking your expenses for 30 days, get them written down on paper and then either implement a virtual online system like mint.com or Every Dollar with your smartphone where you can track the flow of money in and out, literally every expense, or use an envelope system where you're literally funding envelopes to use for your spending so that when you run out of money in a certain category, you don't spend any more. And we're going to want to prioritize paying off those credit cards. Once the credit cards are gone, we're going to build that savings up to 3 months expenses, and you're going to really feel some progress being made here. Then I would reinstitute that retirement account to take full advantage of the match as soon as the credit cards are paid off, and then take the rest because we're not paying the credit cards anymore. So you should have a little left over, and we're going to apply that to pay extra on the personal loan, then the student loans once you start paying on those. If you need help with all this, get connected with one of our MoneyWise coaches at moneywise.org.
And Susie, we're going to send you a complimentary copy of Howard Dayton's book, Your Money Counts. You stay on the line. This is MoneyWise with Rob West. I'm Steve Moore. Back with more after this.
Would you like your life to be infused with joy? Would you like to interject an eternal dimension into even the most ordinary day? Author Randy Alcorn says you can when you discover the Treasure Principle. In a concise, power-packed style, this newly revised and updated book offers a 6-step plan to finding the immediate pleasure and eternal rewards of the Treasure Principle. And once you discover it, life will never look the same. The Treasure Principle is available when you click the store button at moneywise.org.
Investing is more than just returns. It's an expression of who you are and what you value. Does the way you invest your money reflect your identity as a Christian? At Eventide, we design investments for performance and a better world, so you can invest with the confidence to reach your financial goals while remaining true to your Christian values and commitments. We call this investing that makes the world rejoice. More is available at investeventide.com. That's investeventide.com.
Okay, let's go back to our phones. Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Barbara, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
I'm 70 years old, and I want to work full-time for the rest of my life, of course. But what I'm concerned about was the Medicare, whether I'm required to take Medicare since my company pays insurance for me full-time, or am I going to get a penalty from Medicare? And the second part of the question is, do I have to take money out of the 403 because I'm working for a nonprofit at 70 and a half?
Yes. Great questions here, Barbara. I think the first one related to the Medicare is if you're over 65 and you receive coverage under a group health plan provided by an employer that you're actively working at, you have the right, in most cases, to delay Medicare enrollment until the job ends or the coverage ends, whichever occurs first. At that point, you'd be entitled to a special enrollment period of up to 8 months to sign up for Medicare without risking the late penalties. Now, if you are required to sign up and you don't, then you'll be left with little or no health coverage. So it's really important to find out from your employer whether you need to enroll in Medicare. And if you don't, find out exactly how the employer coverage fits in with Medicare. If you're told you don't, get that decision in writing. So I think that's really the idea, is to go back to your employer just to confirm all of this. But generally speaking, in your situation where you have coverage and you are working, you would be able to delay taking Medicare.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for your call today.
403B?
Oh, yes. Tell me that question again. I'm sorry.
I wanted to know if I am required at 70 and a half to take that distribution.
Yes. So as a 403B plan participant, you have to take an annual required minimum distribution starting by April 1st. After the calendar year, you turn 70 and a half, and you can get that amount from the IRS based on their tables, but you will absolutely have to take that RMD at that point.
Barbara, thank you very much. We appreciate your call. We appreciate your effort trying to find a good cell signal there. Yeah, cell phones are wonderful things, but sometimes they aren't, particularly on a call-in program. Aurora, Illinois. Devante, you want to pay off your car or something. What's going on there, buddy?
So I currently still owe $8,000 on my car. And I usually put away $300 into my savings. I was wondering if I should just, check the debt all at once with my savings, or just keep it how I am doing right now.
Yeah. Do you have an emergency savings right now separate from this $300 you have extra?
Yes, I currently have maybe around $3,500 or so in my savings for emergencies.
Okay, and how many months' expenses would that represent for you?
Probably maybe 2 to 3 months. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, well, let's try to get that up to 3 months' expenses. So I would just pay the minimum on the auto loan. Let's make sure you have a good spending plan, and then let's start putting 10 to 15% away for retirement. And if you have anything left over, then let's add that to the auto loan at that point.
But you're moving in the right direction, Devante. We appreciate your call and hope that helps you. Thanks so much. Bernadette, we know you've been holding for a bit. Thanks so much for that. And what's your question for Rob West?
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes,
thank you for taking my call. I actually enjoy listening to your program as well, and already started looking up CKAs last weekend, so I'm waiting for someone to get back to me.
Great. Thanks, Bernadette.
My husband and I have a question about how to prioritize 3 things. We'd like to save up for college. We have 2 boys, a 12 and a 9. We also want to pay off my husband's student loan, and whether we should refinance a mortgage that we applied for and received last May. So we bought a home 10 months ago at an interest rate of 4.75, and the same lender approached us about 2 weeks ago and wondered if we wanted to refinance. They ran some numbers for a 15, 20, and 30 year.
Okay.
So what should be our priority?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Great questions. Let's stay with the mortgage first. Because you've just gotten into it and the cost of the mortgage, and I can't imagine you're going to save very much in the way of interest, we would typically say you need to save 1.25 to 1.5, and you need to make sure that you're going to stay in this property for at least 5 to 7 years to be sure that the cost of refinancing actually works in your favor. What kind of terms was the loan officer offering?
They ran a 15, a 20, and a 30. And for the 30, I think we would save at least about $100 a month, $1,000 in interest a year.
Okay,
and
what was the interest rate? Do you remember?
That is something I wanted to ask my husband before calling,
no
but
problem.
I'm not sure exactly. It's about 4.5, I think.
Okay. And what do you have right now, a 30-year as well?
Yes, at 4.75.
Okay. Yeah, I would not refinance. You're not going to save. The very minimum I would want you to save would be at least 1% on the interest rate. And then I'd want to know that you're really planning on staying in this home for 7 years. The cost involved in you trying to replace that is just not going to work in your favor. In terms of the student loan versus college, the priority order is first we want to make sure we save the emergency fund. We want to pay off high interest credit card debt, and we want to make sure we're saving 10 to 15% toward retirement. Beyond that, I would look to the student loans next as my priority, and I'd want to make sure I was on track to be able to pay those off in 5 to 10 years at the most. Now, that's where you kind of get into your preference. I think at that point you say, well, do we pay off the student loan in full before we start on college, or do we wait and pay this, or do we go ahead and do it now and perhaps, split that payment? And I think that's something you just need to think about prayerfully. I think if it was me, I would like to go ahead and satisfy that student loan in full, knock that out, put all of your money toward that, pay it off quicker, and then focus all of your effort at that point on college.
Bernadette, at that point, we're going to have to wrap it up and say goodbye, but we sure do appreciate your phone call today. Hope that information helps you, and we trust you'll have a great response when the CKA you're flagging everything eventually gets back to you and works with you on whatever it is you guys decide in the future. But thanks so much for calling in today. If you'd like to know more about Certified Kingdom Advisors in your area in multiple disciplines, you can find out more about them, and you can actually find one when you visit moneywise.org, moneywise.org. Also at that website, you'll find free resources, things like budget templates, our past radio archives, how to connect with a budget coach at no charge, and much, much more. Moneywise.org is our website. Thanks so much for tuning in, for listening, and for calling. My thanks today to our crew behind the scenes, Amy, Judy, Courtney, Opal, and Jim. For Rob West, I'm Steve Moore, hoping you have a great remainder of your day. And join us again tomorrow for a brand new edition of MoneyWise.
MoneyWise is provided by MoneyWise Media and by listeners like you.